What if I told you that the secret to the next generation of quantum artificial intelligence
Oh, boy.
and the potential cure for Alzheimer's disease was just currently sitting in a pile of rotting coffee waste down in Costa Rica?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd on its face.
Right.
We're so conditioned to think that to get to the future, we have to engineer our way out of the natural world entirely,
Yeah.
and usually in a sterile, multi-billion-dollar lab.
Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Whether you are catching up on the latest in nanotechnology or prepping for a tech briefing or, you're just insanely curious about how the world works, we are so glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Because today our mission is to understand how a specific type of agricultural scrap from Central America is actively revolutionizing, well, basically everything. Quantum computing hardware, human medicine, and even the entire geopolitical landscape of the tech industry.
It's a huge shift.
Yeah, and to do that, we are analyzing a really fascinating document today. It's an August 2026 dossier, and it's titled Nova Amazonia Dossier Científico Final.
And this document, it represents a massive paradigm shift. I mean, we are looking at a technological leap that forces us to just completely rethink the relationship between biological waste and cutting-edge physics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we get into artificial intelligence or curing brain diseases, we really have to lay the foundation.
Sure.
We have to talk about graphene.
Right.
And anyone who has paid even a little attention to tech over the last decade has heard the word graphene.
Oh, yeah, it was everywhere.
Right. It was supposed to be the miracle material. But the dossier makes a huge distinction between what we thought graphene was and what this new material is.
And that distinction is really the linchpin of this entire dossier. So traditional graphene is a two-dimensional material.
Okay.
Conceptually, it is essentially a flat, one atom thick layer of carbon.
Just a single layer.
Exactly. But the problem lies in how this traditional 2D graphene is actually produced.
Right, yeah.
It's typically manufactured in the global north, and the process involves extremely aggressive chemical synthesis.
So it's not a natural thing at all.
No, not at all. We're talking about using really harsh acids, chemical vapor deposition, and just massive amounts of energy to force carbon atoms into this flat sheet.
And beyond the massive cost of doing that, I mean, the source material points out that the resulting material has some pretty severe physical limitations, right?
Definitely.
Like, I know it's highly conductive,
Yeah.
but the dossier highlights that traditional 2D graphene is inherently cytotoxic,
Yes.
meaning it is actively harmful to human cells.
Extremely harmful.
But mechanically, why is a piece of carbon toxic?
Well, it comes down to its physical geometry.
Okay.
Because it is a rigid, microscopic, flat sheet that's synthesized through this intense chemical pressure, the edges of traditional 2D graphene are just incredibly sharp on a cellular level.
Oh, wow. So it's like a nanoscale razor blade.
Exactly that. So when it interacts with living biological tissue, those rigid, sharp edges can just physically slice right through cell membranes. Yeah, and you add in the lingering toxic residues from the chemical synthesis process, and you have a material that you absolutely cannot put into a human body.
Because the immune system would just go crazy.
The immune system will attack it, and the graphene itself will literally destroy the cells it touches.
Wow. So we have this miracle conductor that is entirely too dangerous to use in biology and incredibly expensive to make.
Right.
But the dossier introduces a completely different approach. I saw the text detail the doctoral research of a Costa Rican scientist in nanotechnology and advanced materials science.
Right. Martin Gutierrez Guerrero.
Yeah.
His applied research in quantum physics has led to the creation of something entirely different, which is 3D biogenic coffee graphene.
Which is just, the name alone is a lot to take in.
It is a mouthful.
Right, biogenic. So we are talking about an ultra-pure carbon nanomaterial, but instead of being built in a chemical bath, it is extracted sustainably from the residual biomass of coffee crops.
Specifically in Cartago, Costa Rica.
Cartago, right. So the leftover organic material, I mean, the wood, the branches from growing coffee.
Exactly.
But how do we get from a literal coffee branch to graphene without the harsh chemicals?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying extraction method. Gutierrez Guerrero utilizes a specialized green pyrolysis reactor.
Pyrolysis.
Yeah, pyrolysis involves heating the organic material to just extreme temperatures, but crucially in the complete absence of oxygen.
So it can't burn.
Right. Instead of catching fire and turning into ash, all the volatile compounds kind of just bake off.
Okay.
And that leaves behind this totally pure carbon. But because they aren't forcing the carbon into a a flat sheet through chemical pressure, it retains its original shape.
Meaning the actual biological shape of the coffee plant itself.
Precisely. This biogenic variant possesses a tridimensional porous molecular architecture. It actually imitates the native biology of the plant's vascular system.
So like the microscopic tubes and structures the plant used to move water and nutrients when it was alive.
Yes, it retains this incredibly complex, natural, sponge-like structure.
Wow.
And that specific geometric structure guarantees two things that flat graphene simply cannot do.
Which are?
Perfect biological compatibility and superior molecular conductivity.
Okay, I was trying to visualize this while reading the notes, and I want to make sure I have the mechanics right here.
Go for it.
So if traditional 2D graphene is like a rigid, shattered pane of glass, flat, sharp, and totally deadly to cells,
Good analogy.
then this new 3D biogenic graphene is like a highly conductive natural sea sponge.
Yes.
Because it's porous and has depth, there are no microscopic razor edges at all.
Exactly.
So human biology recognizes the organic shape and actually naturally wants to integrate with it.
The sponge analogy captures the physical reality perfectly, and it's exactly that sponge-like 3D porosity that makes it so revolutionary. And not just for biology, but for computer hardware.
Which takes us right into Project Intelligentsia, Artificial P006, LNK369 AI Galatea.
That's the one.
Yeah, we are jumping straight from coffee fields in Costa Rica into quantum computing architecture.
It is wild. But to understand why a coffee sponge is useful for a computer, we have to look at the physical limits of our current technology. Right now, our traditional silicon processors are basically hitting a wall.
Moore's Law, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. As we try to make microchips smaller and faster, the silicon traces are getting so incredibly thin that they physically cannot conduct and stabilize energy efficiently anymore.
Oh, because they just melt.
Well, they generate too much heat, but also the electrons start basically jumping the tracks.
Oh.
It's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling.
So the chip basically just leaks energy.
Exactly.
So traditional computing is bottlenecking because of the fundamental physics of silicon.
Yes.
But the dossier claims this 3D biogenic graphene bypasses those limits entirely by utilizing something called spintronics.
Right.
Okay, time out. I know we throw around the word quantum a lot on here, but I need you to explain spintronics to me like I'm 5 years old.
Fair enough.
How does spin replace the electricity in a traditional microchip?
Let's break it down. So, in a traditional computer chip, data is processed by moving electrons around from point A to point B.
Okay.
An electrical charge is either there or it isn't. That's your basic 1 or 0.
Right.
But moving all those electrons creates a huge amount of heat, and it just takes a lot of energy.
Because there's physical resistance.
Right. Spintronics, on the other hand, doesn't rely on moving the charge of the electron at all. It relies on the spin state of the electron.
The spin state.
Yeah, spin is a fundamental quantum property. Think of it loosely as the electron spinning on its own axis, like a top. It's either pointing up or pointing down.
Okay, so you don't have to move the electron down a wire to send a signal.
Yeah.
You just basically flip its orientation in place.
Exactly.
Well, that sounds vastly more efficient.
Oh, it is vastly more efficient, and it generates almost zero heat.
Oh, wow.
The problem, though, is that keeping those microscopic spin states stable is notoriously difficult.
Because they just flip back.
Yeah. Thermal noise or even minor magnetic interference can easily flip them. And if they flip accidentally, that corrupts the data.
I see.
And flat 2D materials like regular graphene, they don't offer any physical protection against that interference.
I see where this is going.
Yep.
The sponge.
The sponge, exactly. The research indicates that the unique three-dimensional porosity of this coffee-derived graphene acts almost like a microscopic Faraday cage.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. The physical depth and that complex carbon matrix literally cradle the electrons, stabilizing their spin states in a way that flat materials just simply can't do.
Wow.
It isolates them from thermal noise, completely allowing for the development of quantum processors that are infinitely more stable, and it completely bypasses the physical conductivity limits of silicon.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Wait, so if its charge and spin retentions is perfectly stable,
Yeah.
and it's physically structured like a complex 3D web, are we literally using coffee waste to build computer chips that act like human brains?
Essentially, yes.
Because the dossier keeps using the word memristore in relation to AI. Is that what a memristore is?
Yes. So the concept of the memristor is basically the holy grail of artificial intelligence hardware.
Okay.
To understand why it's so important, look at the term itself. Memory and resistor combine into one word.
Memristor. Right.
In a standard computer, you have the CPU for processing and the RAM for memory.
Two totally different things.
Right, they are two separate pieces of hardware. Data has to constantly travel back and forth between them to do literally anything, which is a massive bottleneck.
Right, the von Neumann bottleneck. The processor spends most of its time just sitting around waiting for the memory to fetch data.
Exactly. But look at the human brain. Our biological synapses handle both processing and memory simultaneously in the exact same physical location.
Oh, right.
A synapse learns, it adapts, and its physical electrical resistance actually changes based on the history of the electrical charges that have passed through it.
So it remembers.
It remembers. And the dossier explains that because this 3D biogenic graphene has such an extraordinary capacity for stabilized charge retention within its core structure, it natively functions as a memristor.
Wait, so instead of writing software to try and simulate a neural network on a clunky traditional silicon CPU, you are physically building a neuromorphic chip.
Yes.
Like a piece of hardware shaped and functioning identically to the human nervous system using a carbon material derived from a plant.
It forms the ultimate physical architecture for deep AI neural networks because it learns natively.
That is just staggering. We are using the biological structure of a coffee plant to build a physical artificial brain.
It's incredible.
But the dossier takes an even wilder leap here, because if this material is basically a perfect physical mimic for brain synapses,
Right.
and as we established earlier with the sponge analogy, it doesn't slice through cells.
Right.
Right? It's completely biocompatible.
Blindly biocompatible, yeah.
What happens if you put it inside an actual human head?
And that is where the implications for global health and bioengineering are just profound.
Yeah.
We move from AI right into nanomedicine
Okay.
because it conducts electrical impulses perfectly, and living cells actually want to adhere to its 3D structure. It solves a massive hurdle in treating neurodegenerative diseases.
Because the dossier specifically highlights Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease.
Yes, it does.
And I really want to dig into the how here. How does a microscopic piece of carbon help heal a brain suffering from Alzheimer's?
Well, think of our neurons as biological wires carrying electrical action potentials.
Okay.
In diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, those wires become damaged.
Right.
Or the synapses connecting them just die off, breaking the circuit.
Right, so the signal just stops.
Exactly. And the brain struggles to regrow them across those empty gaps.
Oh, well.
So the dossier projects direct applications where this 3D biogenic graphene is actually introduced to those damaged areas to act as a structural and electrical scaffold.
Like a physical trellis for the brain.
Because the graphene is a highly conductive 3D web, the surviving neurons can physically latch onto the pores of the sponge and literally use it as a bridge to grow across the damaged area,
Yep.
while the graphene itself immediately restores the electrical connection.
It bridges the gap both physically and electrically at the exact same time.
That is amazing.
And the porous architecture serves a second equally critical function. It acts as a bioactive vector.
Meaning drug delivery, right.
Yes. Because it's full of all these microscopic hollow spaces, medical professionals can load those tiny pores with specific pharmaceuticals.
Oh, wow.
So once the scaffold is integrated into the damaged area of the brain, it offers prolonged, ultra-targeted drug delivery right to the affected tissue.
So it's releasing the medication slowly over time, directly where it's needed most, instead of just flooding the whole body.
Exactly.
So it's rebuilding the electrical grid of the brain while simultaneously acting as like a hyperlocal pharmacy.
It really is. And the applications aren't just internal either, because the dossier also provides some really specific, almost unbelievable data on dermal regeneration.
Healing the skin.
Right.
Yeah, the metrics on the biodermal front are exceptional, particularly regarding oxidative stress.
So the dossier states that this material stimulates the healthy multiplication of fibroblasts. And fibroblasts are the cells that manufacture collagen and form our connective tissue, right?
That's right.
They're what actually rebuilds skin after it's damaged.
They are basically the construction workers of the skin.
Okay.
And just like the neurons in the brain, fibroblasts thrive when they have a three-dimensional matrix to grow on.
Oh, so the sponge again?
The sponge again. The biogenic graphene provides an ideal biological scaffolding for them to just multiply rapidly, which vastly accelerates tissue healing.
But the stat that absolutely stopped me in my tracks was the antioxidant claim.
Ah, yes, the 98.5%.
Yes. The dossier explicitly claims this material provides a 98.5% absolute antioxidant protection against dermal oxidative stress.
It's a huge number.
Mechanically, how is a carbon sponge neutralizing that much damage?
Well, we have to contextualize oxidative stress first.
Okay.
So on a molecular level, things like UV rays or pollution, they cause molecules in our skin to lose electrons.
Right.
These become free radicals. You've probably heard that term in skincare commercials.
Free radicals, yeah, definitely.
They're basically unstable molecules that violently bounce around, stealing electrons from healthy cells, damaging DNA, and accelerating the aging process.
They're just wreaking havoc.
Exactly. But the sheer surface area and extreme conductivity of the 3D biogenic graphene means it acts as a massive radical scavenger.
Oh, because it conducts electricity so well.
Yes, it simply absorbs and neutralizes those unstable charges before they can damage the surrounding biological tissue.
That is wild.
It basically provides a near-perfect physical shield against molecular aging.
I want to pause for a second, make sure the listener is tracking the full scope of this.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Because we're talking about the exact same foundational material extracted from a pile of leftover coffee branches, potentially powering the high-speed quantum AI processor on your desk, and simultaneously being used in a medical matrix to reverse skin aging or physically regenerate dying pathways in your brain.
It represents the ultimate literal convergence of biology and technology.
Truly.
And when you have a material that is this revolutionary, capable of disrupting the most lucrative industries on Earth, I mean, from quantum computing to advanced medicine, it naturally carries massive economic and geopolitical weight.
Which brings us to the geopolitical framing of the dossier. And I want to be incredibly transparent with our listener here. Important distinction to make. Right. Our goal is to impartially report the contents of this source text so you can understand the motivations driving the project. We aren't taking sides here, but the authors frame this discovery through a very specific lens regarding global power dynamics.
Very specifically, yeah. The text makes no secret of its stance at all. It declares that this milestone developed by a Costa Rican scientist in Cartago aggressively shatters what it calls the old colonialist and industrial paradigm.
Right. The dossier argues that historically the Global South has been forced into the role of simply providing cheap raw materials.
Exactly.
They grow the crops or they mine the ores, and then those raw materials are just shipped to the Global North, where expensive labs process them into high-value technology and, frankly, reap all the profit.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the dossier is fiercely advocating for what they term 100% green technological sovereignty.
Wow.
It emphasizes that Gutierrez Guerrero's work proves that with academic rigor and a deep understanding of natural processes, the Global South can dictate the absolute peak of planetary technology entirely internally.
And they take a lot of pride in the fact that this is achieved without forcing synthesis, right? Without massive pollution and without relying on ultra-costly northern laboratories.
A huge amount of pride, yes.
Okay. But as someone who always looks at the underlying economics, I have to ask, does the math actually support this massive paradigm shift?
That's the real question.
Like, is this actually going to redefine the circular agricultural economy, or is it just a really cool theoretical proof of concept?
Well, the dossier actually provides a very detailed financial analysis of the green pyrolysis process to prove the economic viability. And the transformation of value is, quite frankly, astonishing.
Let's hear it.
So they break it down using a baseline of 100 kilograms of raw coffee biomass.
Okay, let's walk through those specific metrics. What is 100 kilos of coffee waste traditionally worth to a farmer?
Well, traditionally, if a farmer takes 100 kilograms of this leftover wood, they just chop it up and sell it as raw firewood.
Okay.
Across Latin America, the estimated commercial value for that pile of firewood averages between 5 to 12 euros.
5 to 12 euros. So it's a terribly low-value commodity, literally meant to be set on fire just to get rid of it.
Exactly. Now, consider the innovation. The project takes that exact same 100 kilograms of raw biomass, runs it through Gutierrez Guerrero's green pyrolysis technology, and the yield is 2.8 kilograms of pure 3D biogenic graphene.
Which, might sound like a massive loss of weight from 100 kilos down to 2.8 until you look at what that 2.8 kilograms is actually worth on the advanced materials market.
Exactly right. The dossier cites the commercial grade value of this pure 3D biogenic graphene at 2,500 euros per kilogram.
Oh my goodness.
So that 2.8 kilogram yield has a total commercial value of 7,000 euros.
That is insane. You are taking 12 euros worth of discarded firewood
Oh.
and literally transforming it into 7,000 euros worth of foundational quantum computing and nanomedical material.
It completely flips the economic script entirely. And according to the source, the patents backing Project Galatea are already receiving the highest viability and sustainability ratings from international certifying firms.
No.
The commercial projections estimate the generation of hundreds of millions of euros in the coming years.
So the dossier is arguing that this kind of localized processing will completely shield the profitability of the regional coffee sector while drastically expanding Nova Amazonia's reach globally.
Exactly.
I mean, they aren't exporting wood anymore. They're exporting the actual architecture of the future.
And doing it by aligning cutting-edge science with a fundamental respect for the natural world.
So what does this all mean? We started today by looking at a pile of discarded branches in Cartago, Costa Rica. And through rigorous academic research, that waste is transformed, and not through toxic acids, but through a completely green heating process
Right.
into a 3D porous carbon sponge. And because it retains the plant's native complex biology, we get a material that can basically do everything.
Pretty much.
It can stabilize quantum electron spins for AI. It can act as a physical minister to mimic human memory. It can bridge dying neuronal gaps to fight Alzheimer's, and even act as a massive radical scavenger for skin healing.
It's breathtaking, really.
It is.
Yeah.
And by achieving all of this locally, it takes a 12-euro pile of firewood and turns it into a 7,000-euro technological marvel, completely shifting the economic power dynamic in the process.
You know, the ethos of the entire project is beautifully summarized in the closing quote from the dossier directly from Martin Gutierrez Guerrero, the CEO of Nova Amazonia.
What does he say?
He writes, "It is time to start awakening consciousness, leave behind processes harmful to health and the planet, and start looking to the stars, but with our feet firmly on the ground, listening with respect and admiration to what nature has been trying to tell us for eons."
Listening to what nature's been trying to tell us. You know, it really makes you realize how much time and money humanity has spent trying to build the future by forcing flat, toxic, shattered glass into our machines and our bodies when the perfect structural blueprint was literally already growing in the soil.
It's profoundly humbling.
It really is. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to chew on today. If discarded coffee wood holds the secret to neuromorphic computing and curing neurodegenerative diseases, what other mundane, everyday agricultural waste products sitting in fields around the world right now are hiding the next massive leap in nanotechnology?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. What if the real key to the future isn't about forcefully synthesizing entirely new things in a lab, but simply looking closer at the three-dimensional structures nature has already spent millions of years perfecting?
That is a phenomenal question to end on.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the world around you, and we'll catch you next time.